This is a common earthworm. It keeps our soil healthy and full of life.
Cut an earthworm in half. Does it die, or does it become two worms? A shovel slices through soil, a worm gets caught in the middle, and somehow both halves keep wriggling. The story says wait a few weeks, and you'll have two living worms where there used to be one. It sounds too strange to be true. Let's set the rules first. We're not talking about any worm. We're talking about the common earthworm you'd find in your backyard, the kind turned up by a shovel or a rototiller 1,000 times a day, all over the world. We're asking what happens in the first few seconds after the cut. We're asking what happens hours later, and what's left weeks after that. No exaggeration, no folklore, no half-remembered thing your grandfather told you while gardening. Just what the biology actually shows, piece by piece. Ready to find out if this backyard legend holds up? Start with the body itself. An earthworm doesn't have one brain running the show. It has a simple nerve cord stretching the length of its body, with clusters of nerve tissue repeated in segment after segment. It doesn't have one heart either. It has 5 pairs of aortic arches, spaced out and working together, pumping blood through the same tube within a tube layout that repeats down its entire length. No single organ sits in one irreplaceable spot the way a human heart or brain does. That's the root of the myth. A body with no single control center feels like it should be splittable. Each segment looks almost like its own small machine, complete with its own bristles for gripping soil. So why doesn't cutting it just make 2 functioning machines? Here's where the story gets more specific. An earthworm's body is divided into somewhere between 100 and 150 ring-like segments, according to researchers at Iowa State University. Near the front, about a third of the way down, sits a slightly swollen, lighter-colored band called the clitellum. That band isn't decorative, it marks the boundary of the reproductive organs, and more importantly, it roughly marks where the worm's essential organs stop being repeated segment by segment. Cut in front of that boundary, and you've likely destroyed something the worm cannot live without. Cut behind it, and the story changes completely. So let's build the actual scenario. Picture the cut happening cleanly, behind the clitellum, leaving the head end with all of its vital organs intact. What happens to that half? Stem cells at the wound site begin dividing almost immediately. Within days, they form a mass of unspecialized tissue called a blastema, the same structural trick salamanders use to regrow a lost limb. A 2024 study tracking this process in the earthworm species Eisenia andrae documented the wound closing within hours, muscle and skin tissue fusing over the cut, and a nerve-driven blastema forming by the following week. The head half, in the right conditions, regrows a functional new tail, segment by segment, over the following weeks, until the new end is nearly indistinguishable from the original. There's a wrinkle here worth pausing on. Some earthworms don't wait for a shovel to do the cutting. Certain species can voluntarily detach part of their own tail when a predator grabs hold, a defense called autotomy. A bird pecks, the worm sheds the segment, and it escapes while the discarded piece keeps twitching just long enough to hold the predator's attention. That worm isn't damaged by accident. It's built the sacrifice into its survival strategy from the start. It's a small reminder that not every severed piece is a disaster in earthworm biology. Sometimes it's the plan. Now for the half you're probably more curious about. What happens to the tail end, the one left without a brain, without a heart, without a gut? This is where the legend starts to fall apart. That piece has no way to eat. It has no way to process food even if it could, no way to sense the world around it the way the head half can. In most common earthworm species, the tail segment survives for a short while, sometimes long enough to unsettle anyone watching it move, muscles still contracting on leftover nerve signals, but it cannot regenerate a head, a mouth, or the organs needed to keep living. It fades within days. 2 worms from one cut? Not for this species, not even close. But biology loves exceptions, and this is where the twist comes in. Not every worm follows the same rule. Compare the common nightcrawler, Lumbricus terrestris, to a close relative, the aquatic blackworm Lumbricus variegatus. Under the right conditions, the blackworm can do something the nightcrawler cannot. It can regenerate a new head from its tail half. 2 genuinely separate, functioning worms from a single cut in a single species built for exactly that kind of damage. Even among worms that only regrow in one direction, the details vary more than you'd expect. Take the red wiggler, Eisenia fetida, the species most composting bins are stocked with. A common earthworm that loses its reproductive segments can regrow them and keep breeding normally. A red wiggler that loses the same segments cannot. It survives, it keeps eating, It keeps composting your kitchen scraps, but that particular capability is gone for good. Regeneration, it turns out, isn't one universal power. It's a patchwork of separate abilities, and which ones a species gets seems to depend entirely on what it needed to survive the longest in its own environment. This isn't folk wisdom. It's documented, repeatable regeneration, and it points to something deeper about how regrowth actually works across the animal kingdom. Charles Darwin spent decades studying earthworms before publishing his final book in 1881 on the outsized role these creatures play in shaping soil, watching them work the ground beneath his own garden for years at a time. He never claimed they could split into two from a single cut. What modern biology adds to his work is the mechanism, the part he had no way of seeing with a 19th century magnifying glass. Harvard biologist Mansi Srivastava and her team identified a master control gene called EGR, or early growth response, that switches on whole-body regeneration in a distant relative, the three-banded panther worm, a species that can be cut into thirds and regrow every missing piece, head, gut, and all. The gene exists in humans too. We just don't use it the way these worms do. So here's the real answer to the question we opened with. Cut an earthworm in half, and in the vast majority of cases, only one half survives, the head end, and only if the cut lands behind the clitellum. The tail dies within days. 2 full worms from one cut is not a backyard myth turned true. It's a rare biological trick, reserved for a handful of species built with the redundancy to pull it off. And that redundancy is the real lesson here. Earthworms don't survive damage because they're indestructible. They survive because their bodies are built without a single point of failure, organs repeated, tissue duplicated, systems distributed instead of centralized. Lose one segment's worth of nerve tissue, and the rest of the cord keeps signaling. Lose one aortic arch, and 4 more keep the blood moving. It's the same principle engineers reach for when they design a network, a power grid, or a backup server, where losing one piece shouldn't take down the whole system. It's the same principle behind a team that keeps functioning even when one person is out sick, because no single role was ever load-bearing all on its own. Nature figured that out in the soil millions of years before we put it in a textbook, or a systems design manual, or a company handbook. So the next time a shovel catches something moving in the dirt, you'll know exactly what you're watching. Not a myth playing out, not 2 new worms guaranteed. Just one small, decentralized creature, quietly proving that survival isn't about being unbreakable. Cut an earthworm in half, and the real story was never about 2 worms. It was about how little any single part of it was ever allowed to matter. Survival, for this creature, was never about strength. It was about never depending on just one part to keep the whole thing alive.